me start that. Sorry, give me a second.
Eileen's gone off to get a cuppa.
And okay, cool.
We're
So I'll
good?
just do a quick intro. So hi to everyone. I think I have kind of seen photos at least of most of you here, and I think most of you would have seen me on my Insta stories, but I'm Faye. I'm the founder of Mama Movement, a sustainable activewear label that is all about celebrating our beautiful mama bodies with color. And today I've got with us a really special guest, Mel. Mel is a qualified holistic nutritionist who specializes in women's health. And Mel is actually also a qualified personal trainer and Pilates instructor. And in fact, how I met Mel in the first place was I actually signed up for her postnatal Pilates class about 2.5 years ago. And I just remember absolutely loving Mel's really gentle approach to postnatal recovery and really tuning into your own body and moving in a way that would make you feel good from the inside. And in January last year, Mel actually launched the Amazing Mums Academy, which is her online membership for mums, where she educates and empowers mums to use the power of food to really energize themselves through all stages of motherhood. Mel, you are an absolute wealth of knowledge about food, nutrition, women's hormones, and how all of those things all link together. So I'm really excited to have you here with us today to chat about that. I know there are a couple of pregnant women in the audience and some possibly breastfeeding and then beyond as well. So very excited to hear more about your tips, and over to you.
Oh, thanks, Faye. And we saw each other this morning as well at the Biz Hub event. Okay, so like Faye said, my name is Mel. I'm a holistic women's health nutritionist, and what that means is that when I work with my clients, I try and get to the root cause of what's going on for them. So if they've got a diagnosed women's health condition, they've got, signs of imbalanced hormones, or just feeling really exhausted, we try and get to the cause of what's going on rather than just trying to deal with those symptoms. And that way we get rid of those symptoms for good, so that you know what you need to be doing to be feeling good. So that's what that means. So I thought I would start talking a little bit about the pregnancy side of things, and what foods can make you feel really good and things to be looking out for during your pregnancy, and then move on to that postpartum, that breastfeeding and beyond sort of stage of motherhood. So how many of you are actually pregnant? Can I get, some of you got your cameras turned off, but I think there's like three or four of you.
I believe Sam and Jasmine are.
Mm-hmm.
They're on mute at the
Cool.
moment.
That's all right.
I'm breastfeeding at the moment.
Okay.
Just had my baby. Yeah.
Oh, you just had it. Congrats.
Or the comment about making a cup of tea, and thought that was a great idea. So I've run to the kitchen and I'm listening from the kitchen bench.
No worries. So we'll talk about first trimester first. I'm just looking down at my notes down here. That's why sometimes you might see me looking down. So the first thing I want to make you aware of is that first trimester, as you might have experienced, or maybe you're about to experience, we can feel pretty crappy. That's a good word for it. You feel a bit tired, really tired, especially if it's, a second or third or beyond pregnancy, where you've got a little toddler running around that you also have to take care of. Plus there might be some nausea going on, some morning sickness. So my very first thing I want to say to the ladies going through that first trimester is to just be really, really kind to yourself. I know that there's a lot of messaging out there in the media about, there's this idea around the first 1,000 days that includes the pregnancy days for the child, and it's so imperative that they're getting this, amazing nutrition for, their bodies and their immune systems. But sometimes I find that's just so unrealistic for that, especially that first, 16-ish weeks where you might be feeling really, really crappy. I remember with Evie, waking up most mornings, and the first thing I would do is go off to the bathroom and have a throw up, and then I'd feel a bit better and I'd try and get some food in. And it just, the thought of, eating salad or trying to get, some sort of vegetables into me just was not, it was just not going to happen. And I for the most part of that first trimester, I think the lady at McDonald's drive-through knew me by face. Like, I went through that drive-through so many times getting hot chips because that's the only thing that made me feel good. So that story is just to say to you, if that is you and you're not feeling like you can handle much in the way of like prepping food and eating really nourishing foods, that's okay. You can make up for it later when you are feeling better. If you are feeling really good in the first trimester, that's amazing, more power to you. And if you want to start to really focus in on what you need to be doing to support your body and your baby's body, the first thing that I want you to be aware of is protein. So protein is so important for it becomes the building blocks of your body's cells, bones, its development, its brain development, developing that placenta. Plus, we also need protein for our own systems in our body. And if you think about what's going on internally in that first trimester, we're building that placenta, so that comes from us, and then we start building this blood supply to go from the placenta to our baby, and that takes a lot of energy and calories to do that. So if you can't get much in, but you can get in some sort of protein, that's really great. So some good sources, if you're a meat eater, chicken and other sort of poultries, beef and lamb are really, really good. Eggs are a great source of protein and good fats as well, which is another thing that we should be concentrating on. If you can so the recommendation is in the first trimester, it's 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, I tell you that not so that you can obsess over that number that you have to be getting this protein. If you are able to eat 3 solid meals in your day and then you're having some snacks in between and you're making sure that there's a little bit of protein in each of those meals and snacks, then you'll be hitting that requirement. So generally speaking, for meals, I subscribe to sort of balancing out those macronutrients, being protein, good fats, and complex carbohydrates. And the reason why I subscribe to that is that it gives us a really stable blood sugar, which is really imperative in terms of our energy levels. It keeps our energy really, really stable throughout the day without these dips in blood sugar that also take our energy levels with them. And then with snacks, if you concentrate on protein and fat, not to say you can't have carb in your snacks, but if you were to have something that was just sort of carbohydrate, like just for example some rice crackers, maybe that's all you can stomach and that's fine. But if you're trying to really do really well with your nutrition in that scenario, then getting some protein with that carbohydrate is going to stabilize that blood sugar and give you that energy throughout the day. Also, stable blood sugar, it can actually really help with that nausea and the morning sickness. If you have a really unstable blood sugar happening throughout the day, you might find that when your energy dips is when you start to feel nauseous or when you start to feel like you're going to be a bit sick. So if you can get something protein rich into you to stabilize that blood sugar, it would be really, really helpful. And I mentioned good fats. That's another thing that we need in abundance when we're building this little human inside us during pregnancy, not just first trimester, I'm talking about the whole way through now. It really helps to lay down the development of the brain. So that comes later on in the pregnancy, but also for yourself, for your energy. Oh, hello. For your energy, your cognition, so your mental kind of focus, good fats is where it's at. So things like a little bit of salmon would be okay in pregnancy if it's cooked all the way through. Some different fishes, you've just got to watch for the mercury content, but don't obsess over that either. It's not like you can't have fish. It just means you sort of need to space it out throughout the week. But I would still say that twice a week is a really good thing to be doing for the protein and for the good fats. And then plant-based sources like avocado, olive oils, nuts and seeds. They're all really good sources of fat, and there's also a little bit of protein in there as well. So you can see how focusing on those things you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get a good amount of protein and fat with both of those things. And that's going to help you feel really energized, and it's going to help with that nausea, like I said, and then the development of the baby as well. Another tip for morning sickness or nausea, all day sickness, is to have some ginger tea in your toolkit. So some ginger tea or ginger capsules, you can buy them from the health food shop. And that ginger just really helps to settle down the stomach, that nausea. You can actually kind of feel it just sort of come down a notch. Not to say that it's going to be gone for good. Like, you know, that tablet, once that wears off, you might start to feel nauseous again, but at least it gives you a little bit of relief. And sipping on ginger tea, so it could be like a tea bag from the shops, but you could just chop up a little bit of fresh ginger and steep it into some boiling water and just let it sit there for a while and just drink that all day long. That could be a really nice way to just stave off that nausea. And the last tip for nausea is vitamin B6. So vitamin B6 in a complex, so that means in a supplement that has all of the different Bs, but with a nice amount of B6 in there, that can actually really help with that nausea as well. So a tip about supplementation, you should definitely be having a prenatal supplement whilst you're pregnant. I would also continue that on postpartum as well. If you're breastfeeding, definitely. And even if you're not, for the couple of months postpartum, it's just a really good way to just replenish those nutrients that might have been lost through pregnancy. So one of the most common things I see with women once they've given birth and they come to me and they're feeling really depleted, maybe they've got some hormonal stuff going on, is that their iron is super low because the baby takes so much from us. And if we're not, I'm getting some nodding heads, if we're not replacing that with either with a supplement if it's really low, or iron-rich foods, you can actually find that it drops really, really quickly, and it can be hard to get back up again. So what I would actually suggest you do, and you can do this obviously at any stage, is go off to your GP and ask them to run a panel of bloods for you. So some of the things that you might want to ask for is that iron panel to just see where that is and what that's doing. And if they come back and tell you that that's on the low side of normal, I would actually take that as I need to be supplementing for a little while to get that up to an optimal level. So you don't need to know the numbers, but if they're saying to you that it's on the lower side of that normal, or obviously outside of that normal range and it's low, you need to be supplementing. Our iron is so important, obviously, for our energy levels, because that iron helps carry oxygen around in our blood, which helps us feel really energized. And you'll see that if you're someone who feels really fatigued and is yawning a lot, that could be actually because you're low in iron. So it's something to look out for. Iron's also one of the building blocks for our thyroid. So that's the next thing I would suggest that you have tested, especially postpartum. It can sometimes go a little bit haywire because of all the changes in our hormones. But our thyroid is basically, its function is to take care of every sort of system, every function that's going on in our body, and regulate how quickly those functions happen. So if our thyroid function is becoming a bit sluggish or slow, those things can slow down, and that's when we can start to feel really tired. Weight gain and feeling cold is also a couple of signs of a sluggish thyroid. So that's another thing that I would definitely be asking to get checked in the postpartum. But it's also something that you could be asking about during the pregnancy as well. So just not letting these things get out of control, because they actually can get out of control quite quickly. And in most circumstances, if you've got an obstetrician, they might be all over this. But if you're going through the public system or you're using shared care, it's generally up to you to advocate for yourself and push for this stuff to get done. It's not going to get done unless you really ask for it. And vitamin D is the other one. So vitamin D, we need good amounts of vitamin D to produce healthy amounts of hormones. And one of those hormones is progesterone. And progesterone is the one that in the very, very early stages at conception time helps us to keep that pregnancy and keep a nice and healthy pregnancy in that early stage. And again, our energy levels. So if you're low in vitamin D, you might find you really tired, but also feeling a bit low in terms of your mood. It can really affect your mood if you're low in vitamin D. So that's another one to keep an eye on. And most supplements do have an element of vitamin D in them, but sometimes not enough. So you want to just be checking what's in your supplement. And I would definitely recommend going to speak to someone, either a health practitioner like myself, or if you take yourself to the health food shop, they'll be able to help you as well. Generally speaking, the supplements that you find at like Chemist Warehouse and Coles and Woolies, there's a few big brand names out there that you'd probably know. They don't necessarily have really high amounts of these nutrients that we need in them, because they're selling them to the general public. So they have to keep it at really sort of low, safe levels. But if you work with a practitioner, or if you are able to get your hands on some sort of more practitioner graded supplements through the health food shop, they're actually a lot more effective in giving you that good amount of nutrient. So that's just something to think about. I've got a few questions. Should I answer questions now?
Yeah, there's a few in the comments now that are kind of on the topic of what you're talking about at the moment around iron and prenatal vitamins.
Okay, so Lauren says, if I'm usually low in iron, should I take it with my prenatal vitamins, or would that be included in it? So it's a really good question. It would depend on how low in iron you are. If you're someone who is always on the very low side, then I would be saying take an iron supplement as well as a prenatal vitamin, but probably need to have guidance with a practitioner or a GP around that and see what they say based on what the levels are actually telling them. But like I said, iron can get very low very quickly. And so if that's the case for you, I would definitely be looking at, a targeted supplement for that, for sure. Sometimes even infusions are necessary if you get super low, but hopefully if you're really on top of this stuff and you're aware of it, you shouldn't get to that point, because if you get to that point, you'll know it. You'll be asleep on the couch at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Did that answer that, Lauren? Oh, she's got her thing off. That's okay.
Sorry, yes, it did. Thanks, Mel.
Oh, no worries. Okay.
Mine was not so much a question, but commenting, because I've just been through all this.
Oh, I see.
And have had to supplement my iron on top of.
Even
though I started my first pregnancy with off the charts high iron, and here I am 2 years later with it low, and a whole lot of the first trimester nausea was linked to the iron supplements and my gut.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It was, something I hadn't seen coming at all. So.
Yes, it's a tricky one, those supplements, because I actually had a note about this. It's definitely a good idea to take your supplements with some food. Your supplements can also make you feel sick. And like Sam said, the iron supplement can make you feel sick. So with food again, but taking that away from any sort of dairy, away from any zinc as well, if you're taking a zinc supplement. So the best thing that you could do to make it really simple for yourself is take your iron tablet about an hour away from any other kind of supplement. And just make sure you don't have any dairy with it, because these things can contraindicate, which means sort of, what's another word for it? Sort of bounce off each other and then inhibit the absorption of the different nutrients. So if you're taking multiple supplements, sort of space them out a little bit in your day. And you're right, it can get super low really quickly, because that baby just sucks everything out of us and leaves the baby. Don't get me wrong, the baby will get what it needs. It's you that's left in a heap at the end of the pregnancy. So it's up to you to just really get on top of that. Are there any other questions about supplementation in pregnancy, or those sort of nutrients that I was talking about? Maybe having a conversation with your GP? No? Okay. So the next thing I want to just talk about is what other things that you can be doing food-wise in your pregnancy to just make sure you're getting the nutrients that you need, the baby needs. And the best and safest way to do this is just to, when you are building out your meals, if you meal plan for the week, having lots of different coloured foods on your plate. So lots of red foods and lots of green foods is where it's at, because the red foods have a lot of antioxidants, and other nutrients that help to really build, they help to lay down really healthy DNA patterns in your baby. So that's a really good thing. And these the green foods, so I'm talking sort of like green leafy veg, broccoli, kale, if you like that kind of thing, spinach, bok choys, these are all really rich in, again, really small antioxidants, but the B vitamins. And the B vitamins give you lots of energy and help with that mental clarity that we also need to get through our day. Because, we might be pregnant, but we've also got jobs and other kids and everything else going on. You need to have that energy. So if you can get that color into your plate, it will be really, really good. So some red ones, so capsicum, beetroot, which is purple, but purpley red. And things like berries are really great. So if snacking on some yogurt, put some berries in there. Any way that you can find to add some more color onto your plate is really, really good. What next? Yep, so I've talked about getting our levels checked. And okay, so are there any specific pregnancy questions that anyone wants to ask about nutrition, or how they might be feeling in their pregnancy, and how I might be able to help with something? Just see if anyone's typing anything. Nope. Otherwise, I'll move on to postpartum. So this part of the journey, it's not actually, in terms of the requirements that you need, it's not dissimilar to pregnancy, especially if you're breastfeeding. So, we need lots of protein again, probably the same amounts of protein if we're breastfeeding that we needed in the pregnancy. So it was that 1 gram per kilo of body weight. And then it gets a little bit higher in the second and third trimesters. And it would go back to something like the same as with the first trimester for breastfeeding. And for the same kind of reason. So we need that for our energy, but we also need it to help with the functions that are going on inside of us that are helping to produce this breast milk. And dependent on your baby, your body needs to come up with this milk, willy-nilly, especially in the beginning. We don't know when our baby's going to feed, and our body just is really smart. It starts to regulate, but especially in the beginning when it doesn't really know what's going on, it's producing a heck of a lot of breast milk. We need a lot of protein to lay down healthy breast milk. The other thing is to just make sure you're drinking lots of water. This goes without saying for pregnancy as well, the whole way through. If you're breastfeeding, make sure when you sit down to feed that bub that you've got that cup of water sitting next to you, somewhere where you can reach it as well, so that you can be sipping on that water as you feed. And then my other tip for that is if you really struggle with getting that water in, because I know how busy and hectic it can be, just leave different bottles of water around your house so that when you move into that room, you see it and it reminds you to take a sip, because you've got this newborn baby, especially if it's your first, you're thrust into motherhood. We all know what that feels like. You've just been, this little thing's just been put on you and you don't know what the heck's going on, and you forget to do these things. We forget to eat and we forget to drink. So just giving yourself little reminders by having that cup of water around the house to have a sip on would be really, really helpful. And the other thing is with postpartum, in terms of specific nutrients that we should be sort of concentrating on, is again that vitamin D. So vitamin D helps us to produce and regulate our hormones. And so once we've had this baby, once the placenta leaves our body, it immediately switches on some chemical reactions in our body that tell us to start to drop our progesterone and to increase in some other hormones like a little bit more prolactin and things, which is going to help bring that milk in. And this is why we get that 5-day sort of drop in our mood or the baby blues. And it can be severe for some people, is because we're having this severe kind of drop in one hormone and increase in the other. And it can leave us sort of feeling not ourselves at all. But concentrating on things like vitamin D. So that could be through a supplement again. There is a little bit of vitamin D in things like eggs, but just getting out into the sun if you can for a little while. just 5-10 minutes in the summertime, probably just a couple of minutes in the Melbourne sun, just to make sure that you're exposing yourself to that sun that's going to help your body convert some hormones into vitamin D to use in your body. And the other thing is, when you are, you're postpartum and you're recovering, and if you're breastfeeding, some complex carbohydrates is also going to be so important, just in terms of your energy and getting those calories into your body so that you can produce healthy amounts of breast milk and be able to meet the needs of your baby. So they're like the key things to look out for in terms of what you want to be doing to have healthy hormone production, produce healthy breast milk. And in terms of recovery from the birth, so it doesn't matter what kind of birth we have, there is some sort of trauma that has happened in our body, and it sounds a bit dramatic, but if you think about it, our body's been through quite a lot with giving birth, and it can affect actually our gut health, surprisingly, because if you think about the actual anatomical position of the baby and then how it leaves our body, C-section or natural birth, it can actually shift our stomach and our intestines around a little bit, and then they find their place again. And that shifting can actually cause a little bit of inflammation. So I don't know if anyone experienced it. I did with my first, that just a little bit of a change in digestive kind of function in the few days postpartum. So it could be either one way or the other. You're feeling like you can't go, or you feel like you have to go all the time, one or the other. And it's because, your digestive system's been a little bit disturbed. And it's also about that change in hormones that are happening. So hormones actually directly affect our digestive system as well. So something that you could look at doing postpartum that you might want to think about before you have baby and you're doing some prep for, stuff to put in the freezer or whatnot, or if someone's helping you out with this, it could be a good suggestion for them, is to make yourself some bone broths. So it could be a chicken bone broth. It could be from beef bones. If you're vegetarian, I would definitely look at doing some mushrooms, some reishi and shiitake mushrooms, some turmeric would be really great. What it's going to do is just reduce the inflammation that's going on in your digestive system to help you become a bit more regular, and just to help sort of soothe, that feeling of just feeling really vulnerable in that region of your midsection. It was just help to soothe that and just bring that inflammation down a little bit. It's also, I think, just a really nice way to have a bit of a sit down and a ritual in your day when you've got new bub. Also another way to get fluids into you as well. If you sit down with a cup of broth, or if you make it into a soup or something like that, you can sit down and just mindfully eat this soup or this broth. And it's just one way to sort of have a bit of time for you to just sort of sit with yourself for a minute, sort of almost like a forced mindfulness in that first few days and weeks postpartum. It's something that I sort of recommend to all my clients, is that they utilize food as a way to give themselves a break. So if it's that they can hand baby off to somebody else so that they can sit, because it's just so important that we are looking after ourselves, and that the support people around us understand how important it is too, that they help us give that time to us. So yeah, broths are really good. Soups are great. And also, if you're a meat eater, some really nice slow cooked meals. So some slow cooked lamb or beef in the slow cooker in the oven. The same sort of thing as with the bone broth. It's bringing out these minerals in the meat, and it's also, what it's doing is breaking down the sinews of the meat a little bit, so it's easier for us to digest and get the minerals from, but also just nicer on our digestion in that first few weeks postpartum. And it's just nice to have a really warming, sort of rich kind of meal like that when we're postpartum, because it's quite comforting. Jasmine's asking, do the powdered bone broth still have the same benefit? So the powdered, and there's also like gums that you can get now, like a paste. They are good, but they're definitely not as good as the real deal, because just the process of processing those powders and those pastes, you do lose some of the minerals and the benefits. Like the collagen is the one that we're really after. So they're probably not as potent as doing it yourself. However, if that's the only way that you can sort of fathom getting that done for you, then I would say 100% go for it. Like, I've got some paste in the fridge, and I know if I'm looking to flavor something, or if I want to make, I've been obsessed with making soups lately, by the way, and I have made my broth, but sometimes I'll just use the paste because that's all I've got at that moment, and you know, that's totally fine. Any way that you can find to make this stuff easier for yourself, I 100% endorse. Because I know how hard it is to get that time to sort of, prep food and whatnot. Does anyone else have any questions? I'll take a sip of water.
I kind of have a question around, so like postpartum with nutrition with a toddler, trying to find like snack ideas that you don't take too much time to make, that are going to the nutrients your toddler needs and you can need, because making 2 different meals isn't really always doable. Do you have any suggestions or anything like that?
And eating one-handed is my other one linked to that.
Yes, eating one-handed.
Over breastfeeding,
Yeah, totally. So if you're breastfeeding, because you guys starving when you're breastfeeding? Do you find that you're just really, really hungry? Yep.
I just always eat all the time in general.
Me too. The first thing I would suggest is, if you've got a specific chair that you feed at, especially in the middle of the night, that's when I found I was ravenous when I needed to eat something in the middle of the night. Have something like a nice mix of nuts or something next to you, or some crackers. Crackers with nut butter is really good, or and it's something that doesn't spike your blood sugar too much. So if it was to be a piece of fruit, that would be fine, but it would actually, especially in the middle of the night, it would spike that blood sugar up a little bit. And what that will do is probably make it a bit hard for you to get straight back to sleep after that feed. So you want to go with something that's really protein and fat rich. So like a little pick and mix of nuts. Maybe you want to put a little bit of dark chocolate in there or something, just for something, you know, kind of tasty. I like the 90% lint with nuts. They go really nicely together because it's quite bitter. Other one-handed ideas for snacks are something like the brown rice cakes that you can get from Coles and Woolies. There's a really good brand called Pure Harvest that you can get from Coles and Woolies. So they're actual brown rice. They're not white rice, which would again spike your blood sugar because of it's more of a high GI type of food, whereas the brown rice is a low GI. If you were to smack some avocado on that, you could do some tuna from the can or some salmon from the can. Hemp seeds. Do you guys know about hemp seeds? It's like it's my favorite thing to talk about.
I'd forgotten, but I discovered them because of your Instagram last year.
Did you?
So thank you. And those bliss balls I'm now remembering I got into last year and forgot about. So I need to get
good. Yes, bliss balls are another really good idea. Hemp seeds are little tiny balls of fat and protein. They're just so good to use as like an insurance policy to sprinkle on anything to increase that richness in your food of protein and fat. So yeah, you've got your rice cake, avocado, some sort of tuna, or not at all, just the avocado and the hemp seeds would be fine. Or if you're really rushed and you just want something, but you want it to be balanced, rice cake with some nut butter. So look for the 100% nut butters in the supermarket, the ones that don't have the extra vegetable oils or the sugars. They're more nutrient dense to be just 100%, maybe with a little sprinkle of salt in there as well. But that's going to give you a nice hit of protein and fat and fill you up, because that's, when you're having a snack when you're breastfeeding, you want it to actually fill that hole in your stomach. And the bliss balls are great too. So there's I've got on my website, which I can type in here if you want to go and grab it. I've got a free ebook that's 5 healthy hormone snack recipes. And each of these recipes are something that you can prep ahead of time to just pull. And they are all about the fat and the protein, because that's how we stabilize our blood sugar, like I was talking about. So that's what gives us that energy, satiates us, and makes us feel full, but also helps with that hormone balance that I was talking about. So Melissa Finlay, nutritionist.com. So if you want to go grab it, that's my website there. It's under the freebies tab. So the bliss balls are great. The bliss balls, the recipes that I do, I don't put dates in them. And the reason is that they, because they're so concentrated in that sugar, I'm not saying that fruit's bad, definitely not saying that, but just because you're putting so many shriveled down pieces of fruit into one little bowl, it will spike your blood sugar. And what that means is you will feel hungry again and you'll feel less energized about half an hour later. So if you use something like almond meal, if you use a different sort of meal, oats are really good. What you're doing is giving yourself that protein and that fat, but without the sugar. Oh, I love all these partners taking the babies away. That's so nice. So yeah, so Bliss Balls, go and get the recipe from that ebook, or I've also got a recipe on my website that you can have a look at. One last snack idea, one-handed, is if you like eggs, is egg cups. So you can make them, get your muffin tray and you just whisk up your eggs, and then you can put whatever you want in there. You can put a bit of bacon if you want. You could put different veggies if you're really trying to get lots of bang for your buck in terms of nutrients. So you could do something like a bit of kale and a little bit of capsicum into that egg cup. And so it becomes like a little egg muffin, and they freeze really well. So you can just pull a couple out at the beginning of the day, let them thaw, and then you've got them. You can just quickly heat them up and you've got a one-handed snack that you can be having. You can have them for breakfast as well. They're really perfect for breakfast. So does that give you a few ideas? Yeah, definitely go grab that ebook. And another great website, this is actually a kids website, but I think it's really good for adults as well. It's called One Handed Cooks. And so have you guys heard of that? It's got good toddler recipes. But
I nearly bought their cookbook this afternoon, actually, because I followed them for ages. And I'm now kicking myself I didn't. So I might go do that next week.
Yeah, it's a really
People rave about it. Have you got the cookbook?
I haven't got the cookbook, but they've got lots of freebie recipes on their website, and I think they're just great. I think they're really good. Does anyone have any other questions? No? I think I've actually covered everything I was going to say, because you guys are really all over your questions as well. Oh, a few other ideas for just simple meals that you could do is make yourself up a nice muesli mix, or get your partner or your husband or someone else to do it for you. I'm all about the outsourcing. So something like, actually this recipe is in that ebook, so go grab it. It's oats with different nuts and seeds, and you grab some coconut oil, you drizzle that over, you pop it in the oven for a little while, and you can use that as the base of like a yogurt kind of parfait sort of thing, where you'll do like yogurt with the muesli with some berries and just keep layering. And something like that, I know it's not quite one-handed because you have to scoop, but it's something quick and easy that you can just have prepped in the fridge and just grab it when you've got a minute. And even if you're just standing over the bench, shoveling it in when you've got 2 seconds, at least you're getting something in. Like ideally, I would like you to sit down and mindfully have that meal. But if it's 2 minutes that you've got, then you've got something that takes 2 minutes to eat and it's already prepped. And that muesli mix, or a muesli mixer like that, is something that's really versatile. So you can have it for breakfast. You just pour it out like cereal, put some milk with it, some yogurt with it. And you can also use it as a trail mix. So you can actually just pick at it throughout the day, because you've got those nuts and those seeds in there, and the oats, which are also protein and nice carbohydrates. So you're fueling your body really nicely, just by these really simple things that you can prep at the beginning of your week, or have someone do it for you, like I said, and you're not missing out on nutrients, and you're going to feel nice and full as well and have that energy. So that's about it for me. Does anyone have any other questions?
I actually was wondering, Mel, so one of the things that I'm struggling with a little bit at the moment, and I'm past my breastfeeding journey now, is just finding meals that I can cook for dinner that I can turn into something the next day that doesn't feel like I'm just eating the same thing I had for dinner.
Yes, yeah. Yes, that's a really
I just get bored of eating the same food.
Yeah, me too.
What are some of your kind of tips around doing that?
So I like to use, if I'm doing like a slow cook meal or a roast or something like that, I like to take that meat and put it either into a wrap or like a taco type of scenario, or into a salad. So with salads, it's really good to have a carbohydrate base. So I like to do brown rice in my salads, and then I would take that leftover meat and add that. That's my protein. Then have my leaves, my capsicum, whatever else, nuts and seeds, hemp seeds, of course, and then whatever dressing, you know, that you're using, but taking one element of what you had the night before and using it. Or if you had leftover veggies, you could throw them into and just change up the taste and the texture of it by making it into that salad. Something else that is a really good thing to do if you've got leftover salad chopped up, like capsicum, mushrooms, that kind of thing, throw them into an omelette the next day for the lunch. So don't think that omelettes and eggs have to be breakfast. They can obviously be any time of day. And laying out anything onto a, a crepe. So I like to make crepes out of buckwheat flour. It's just buckwheat and water. And it makes this beautiful, just flat, sort of very thin crepe. It's not tasteless, but it's quite bland, but it's a good sort of base to just throw whatever you want on that crepe, roll it up and shove it in as one-handed. There you go, perfect. So there are a few things that you can do to use the leftovers, but kind of change it up into something else.
Thanks, Mel.
No worries. Does anyone else have any other questions? No, we're all good. Any pregnancy questions or any preconception questions? I'm not sure if there's anyone here who's maybe in that stage of their journey.
Mel, can I ask? It's Lauren.
Hey, Lauren.
Hi. So it's still early days for me, and I'm in that dreadful morning sick, most of the day sick stage. Yeah. So all I feel like eating is rubbish, really. And it's nothing that's filling my tummy, making me feel satisfied. So I'm struggling with feeling like eating something healthy.
Yeah.
But feeling full as well, you know, like I just, and I know I did, hopefully it won't last for too long, but I've probably got at least another 6 weeks of it. I don't know.
It's so hard. Yeah.
And I'm dreading it the next, few months. So
yeah. I don't know if you heard me at the very beginning, Lauren. I was saying when I was in that first trimester with Evie, all I could stomach was hot chips from McDonald's. Like, honestly, that's all I could eat, apart from maybe some like other potato-based things. So the first thing is just be super kind to yourself. If that's all you feel like eating, it's okay, because you can make up for it later when you're feeling better. So give yourself permission, whatever it is that you're craving or that you feel like you can stomach, eat it. If you can get some protein in there somehow, try and do that. Even if it's that burger from McDonald's, at least there's like that. It sounds terrible, but at least there's a little bit of protein in that you're getting. The bliss balls could be good because they're just really inoffensive. They're not. There's nothing too fruity in them, or there's no vegetable in them. So they're quite and they're chocolatey. So that could be something that might feel good. The other thing that you could do if you feel like you can stomach it is just a plain omelette. Just a plain omelette, just some eggs. If you make that omelette super thin as well, so it doesn't feel like you're biting into this huge chunk of egg, and just sort of just tear it up or cut it up and just get it down slowly. That could be a way to sort of fill that hole, because it's full of that protein and fat, but it's inoffensive. You're not putting any green stuff in it. I don't know about you guys, but I think morning sickness and thinking about vegetables, it just they don't go well together. And apparently there is a theory about that it's our body's way of protecting us from ingesting anything that might have salmonella or E. coli that could harm the baby. So it kind of makes us not want to eat that stuff in that very early stages. So again, just be kind to yourself. Eat what feels good, because you can make up for it later when you're feeling better. But try and have a little bit of protein, and that will fill the hole. No worries, no problems.
When I was pregnant, Mel, my first trimester, the thing that I craved the most was citrus, like fruit in all its forms, like mandarins, oranges, orange juice. kind of thinking back on that and what you were talking about with the blood sugars, was that probably not the best idea?
Well, do you know what? It's funny because with Percy, I had the same cravings. I had mango, orange, I wanted like Passiona soft drink, like the real, like the citrus. And I went and had a look at why that might be. And it's because at that point in your pregnancy, that DNA foundation, you're laying those DNA foundations down, and they take a lot of micronutrients and lots of antioxidants, which citrus fruits are full of. And so that could be a reason why you're craving that. But yes, like if you're just gorging on fruit, it's going to do that. It's going to spike your blood sugar, and it's not necessarily going to fill you up, but it's not a bad thing that you're getting those nice nutrients in. It's not a bad thing at all. But yeah, if you are going through morning sickness, definitely the protein and the fat is where it's at to just sort of level all of that out. But yeah, that's funny fact, because I had the exact same craving.
Yeah, everyone else like, it's a good one, isn't it? It's healthy.
Yeah,
I'm like, well, you know how many mandarins I eat in a day?
Do
a
what
whole
feels
bag.
Good. Do what feels good. Oh gosh, it's better than the Macca's chips. All right, is there any other questions?
First trimester was the end of last year, and I think it was one of your bliss ball recipes, Mel, but I don't think it was the one in the ebook. I found it somewhere in your stories when I went down a rabbit warren, but it had fresh raspberries and tahini in it.
Yes,
but I was able to stomach that, and otherwise all I wanted to eat was bread and butter. I'm a teacher, so it was a good one to just like have sneaky in the drawer, and I could stomach that because it was quite plain with frozen raspberries, and there was something about the fruit being frozen that it was easier to stomach. I don't know why.
There you go, Lauren. Where is that recipe? I think
have a dig through.
I think it's in my recipes. What do you call that? My
highlight. I've just got a screenshot of it. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, it's in there. Go and get that one, Lauren. That could be good.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Anne. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up, Faye.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Mel. I hope everyone found that really helpful. I know I did. And I wish I had spoken to Mel when I was in my first trimester. I'm being really sick and eating a lot of mandarins and nothing else. That probably was causing the ongoing morning sickness that I had in that first trimester 3 years ago. But yeah, I really appreciate it, you taking the time, Mel, to spend with us tonight, and I hope everyone enjoyed that. If you have any questions, I'm sure Mel's always happy for you to find her on Instagram and reach out. She's absolutely amazing. So if there was any kind of personal stuff that maybe you didn't want to talk about in this group, but you wanted to reach out to Mel, I'm sure she's more than happy to have a bit of a one-on-one chat with you as well.
I just realised I spelled my website wrong, so that's my website there. I've just typed it in for you. You're very welcome. And yeah, like Faye said, if you guys have any other questions that come up for you, just feel free to email me through my website, or jump on Instagram. I'm always there. I'm happy to help.
Thanks, Mel, and thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. That was great. Have a great night.
No worries. Bye. Bye.